Welcome to the Builder's Corner with your administration and operations expert, Gwendolyn L. Young, where systems plus strategies equals your success. So grab your pen and paper and a comfortable seat and enjoy the show.
I am so glad to be here with you this evening and so excited to be talking about a topic that is relevant to both our personal and professional lives, and that is the pursuit of patience. Now, let me get the disclaimer out ahead of time. I am not an expert on this subject by any means. I am, like many of you, raising my awareness of who God is to me and learning to become more like His character in the midst of life's joys and challenges, and I know that patience is a critical component to the next level He is preparing me for. Galatians 5:22-23, and I'm reading from the Amplified, says, "But the fruit of the Holy Spirit, the work which His presence within accomplishes, is love, joy, which is the same as godness, peace, patience, and even temper of forbearance, kindness, goodness, which is benevolence, faithfulness, gentleness, which is meekness and humility, self-control, which is self-restraint and continence. Against such things there is no law that can bring a charge." As I began to get quiet and to dig a little deeper about what patience really is, I found an interesting truth for myself that I'll let you all listen in on. And many of you probably know this already better than I do, is that God does not have to try to be patient. He just is. I think this is where we as individuals get hung up. We are asking God to make us patient, give us patience, and to be patient with us. And we have failed to recognize that patience is a fruit, meaning there is a seed that has to be put into the ground and planted, watered and nurtured in order for it to produce. Yes, that is a Selah, pause, and think on that moment. So my question today is, what seeds have you sown in order to produce the fruit of patience in your life? And yes, I'm talking to myself as well. Really think about that. Are you short-tempered with people? I know I've been guilty of that. Do you find something to complain about with everything that happens? Are you sowing seeds of discord and destroying relationships? Or are you sowing seeds of compassion to others daily? Yes, even when you perceive they don't deserve it. And not just to those you like, because that's easy, right? But to all men. Are you controlling your emotions and not getting angry and lashing out? Yes, this is a daily work for me. Are you looking for something to be grateful for every day? Patience has to be cultivated. It has to be practiced, meaning given opportunities to actually see if the seed planted has taken root and is growing and bearing fruit. Oftentimes as humans, and because of our instant microwavable society today, where everything is at your fingertips or can be mass-produced, we want to rush past the process of growing the fruit. So let's be honest. I don't like to wait for anything. How about you? Do you like to wait? Waiting in lines, waiting for a long expected letter, waiting for a promised check or someone to pay you back for money that you've loaned them, waiting for some important piece of information, waiting on slow people, waiting for a special appointment, waiting for the doctor even though you scheduled an appointment weeks ago. All of these seem to bother me. I don't know about you. but I'm just being honest. But are they real problems? Absolutely not. These are mere inconveniences. I've been reading a devotion series by Robert Strand on the 9 fruits of the Spirit. And he reminds us that waiting can be a much more serious situation, like waiting for God to answer a prayer for guidance, waiting for the right person to marry, waiting for the dreaded doctor's report, maybe because you haven't been feeling well, waiting for a career promotion or change, waiting for healing from an illness, waiting for the call that you got the job, and so on and so forth. Why is it, and what is it about waiting that bothers us so much? Can we aspire to be like David, who waited patiently for the Lord? And so I have to share with you a funny story that happened to me this week. I had a client that flew in from South Carolina. He was actually here for a speaking engagement, and we decided that we would meet for dinner. It was our first time meeting because for those of you who know the work that I do, 98% of my work is virtual. And so this was my very first time having met this client, which was amazing, by the way. And so I decided to take an Uber because hubby needed to take the car for a different meeting that same evening. And so I thought, it would be nice to be chauffeured, and that way I wouldn't have to rush, or anything like that. And I wouldn't have to drive and be bothered with the traffic. But it's interesting because as I put the Uber in and did it within enough time, because I know exactly how long it takes to actually get to the restaurant. It said the Uber would be there in about 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, great, that's perfect. Well, of course, it took longer than 10 minutes for the Uber to arrive. And so what did I do? I started to become impatient. And so as I was standing out there waiting for him, then he drove past the house a couple times, and I'm like thinking, oh, my goodness, what in the world is going on with this driver? And when he finally comes, he actually pulls on the other side of the street. And so we live on sort of a busy street, and so I had to cross the street in order to get to the Uber and get to the driver and get in the car. And I was just like, oh, please tell me this is not how the rest of the ride is going to be. And so, it's an older gentleman, an elderly gentleman, and I guess he's doing this, to make some extra money, or, maybe it's a hobby of his and he just likes to drive. I don't know, but he's waiting for the GPS to kick in to give him directions. And so, of course, I'm already impatient, and I'm thinking of the time because I don't want to be late for the client. And so I started to give him directions. I'm like, you can just go up to the light and make a left. And so he does that, but then he turns off of the road because in his mind, I guess he wants to bypass the traffic. But instead, we get stuck by a train. So in my head, I'm going, why didn't he just stay on the road? I told him to just make a left or go straight. Either way, it's the time of the day. It's going to be traffic. I don't care what road he's on. So all these things are going through my head. Not to mention it's pure silence in the car. Okay, there's no music. There's no talking. I mean, there's nothing. He is just like driving in silence, and he is a happy camper. With me, on the other hand, in the back seat, a little anxious, and I'm texting the client like, I'm going to be late. My driver doesn't really know what he's doing or where he's going, so I'm not going to be there by 5 o'clock. I'll be there shortly thereafter. I apologize for the delay. And I'm texting my husband like, this driver has no idea what he's doing. Why did he turn off the road, blah, 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 blah. And my husband just said, be patient, darling, be patient. And I just started to laugh because instantly I was reminded that I had previously prayed for God to increase my ability to be patient with people and in situations and just with life in general. And here was an opportunity for me to be cultivating that patience and for it to be matured in my life. And I was still being impatient. So I just decided to sit back and relax and just enjoy the quiet of the ride. And it was really nice. And towards the end, as we started to get closer to the restaurant, he began to say things like, "Oh, what neighborhood is this? I've never been over here before." And so I just had an opportunity to have a brief conversation with him about the area and the restaurant I was going to and the type of food they serve. And so everything turned out to be fine. The client wasn't upset. He actually enjoyed having those few extra moments of quiet for himself because he had just come from an event. And so it all worked out. And so, it's interesting because when you pray for things like that, we have to know that instantly opportunities are going to arise for us to practice what we've actually prayed for. And I was about to miss that opportunity. And so I'm glad my husband reminded me of that and just said, "Be patient, darling." And so I say to you, be patient, darling. Whatever that thing is, just be patient. Philippians 1:6 says, "And I am convinced and sure of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will continue until the day of Jesus Christ, right up until the time of his return, developing that good work and perfecting and bringing it to full completion in you." So if we don't endure the growth process, how can God perfect his work in us? If we don't encounter difficult people, if we don't endure difficult situations, if we don't experience the delays, how will we ever see the fruit of patience operating in our lives? James 1:3 says, "Be assured and understand that the trial and proving of your faith bring out endurance and steadfastness and patience." So how else can patience be produced if we don't have something to wait for? Think about your life for a second. Anything worth having requires you to wait for it. It doesn't happen instantly or overnight. For example, the birth of a child can be as long as 40 weeks. To get your degree takes a minimum of 2 to 4 years. And this is after you've done 8 years of grammar school and 4 years of high school successfully. Not to mention there could have been, pre-K and then kindergarten. If you want to obtain an advanced degree, then it's even more time. Doctors and lawyers, I believe, go to school for an average of nearly 16 to 20 years. Experts say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at your craft. Losing weight in a healthy way takes patience. And it was 30 years before Jesus began his ministry. So if all these great things are produced through waiting, why are we always in such a hurry? Do we want to forego the greatness that is happening or the person we are becoming during the waiting process? As we've already heard in Philippians 1:6, that this will be until the day of Jesus' return. So we might as well get comfortable with practicing patience. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Patience, in my opinion, is not saying just deal with it, ignore it, or run away from it, whatever that thing is for you. It is not a pass to not hold yourself or others accountable for bad behavior, poor choices, and downright laziness. Even the word says to correct in love. And therefore, it is possible to be patient and loving while holding others accountable. When we shift our perspective from viewing patience as a chore or something difficult to do or achieve to simply doing what Jesus commanded us to do, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and body, and love your neighbor like yourself, patience becomes readily available for us to produce within ourselves and to reproduce in others. Is it easy? I can't speak for you, but certainly not for me. I fall short daily, but I'm growing and learning from it, and therein lies the difference. We can't just cherry pick only the fruit we want. We have to embody each fruit of the Spirit if we are going to be effective and see the fruit thriving and bear witness in our lives. So I ask you, where do you need to be patient in your life? Is it in your relationships? Is it with your children? Is it in your marriage? Is it on your job? Is it in your church? Is it with yourself? Where do you need to be patient? In the ultimate test of patience, it's a waiting for future glory, a waiting for heaven's reward. It's a waiting until death takes us home. So we've got a little bit of time, which means we need to be practicing patience. There is no way of getting around it in this life and on this earth. Think about it. Your child had to learn until they were old enough to ride a bike or to get a driver's license to drive a car. Everything in this life worthy of having requires patience. And so we might as well patiently, with gladness and joy and peacefulness, be patient and wait for it to happen. So as we close, there is a quote I once read by Phillips Brooks that says, "Do not pray for easy lives. Pray to be stronger men. Do not pray for tasks equal to your powers. Pray for powers equal to your tasks. Then the doing of your work shall be made no miracle, but you shall be a miracle. Every day you shall wonder at yourself, at the richness of life which has come to you by the grace of God. That richness of life includes peace, joy, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and all of God's other many promises in full effect in our lives. This week I challenge you to kill the flesh while cultivating the fruit of patience. Let's agree to wait patiently, without complaining, without interrupting, without being in a hurry, without getting angry, without any road rage. Let's instead relax and rest and wait for the goodness of God to develop and mature in our lives. Blessings and good night.
Thank you for listening to The Builder's Corner with your administration and operations expert, Gwendolyn L. Young. We trust that you've picked up some great strategies to systematize your success. Remember to tune in every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, and why not bring a friend? Connect with Gwendolyn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Gwendolyn L. Young, and visit our website at www.youradminexpert.com.